Thank you, Doña, for that beautiful, honest, and inspiring performance. After facing so many COVID restrictions and obstacles to create this production, I just have to say we appreciate this collaboration deeply and love so much that you created this unique recording just special for our virtual Wednesdays. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And welcome to everyone. Welcome to Virtual Wednesdays. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We just watched a special performance by Doña, and we wanted to share some more information and some insight into her process. So we are live. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat panel. It is an absolute honor to pass the mic to Rio Yañez. He will be in conversation right now with Doña. Rio has been a wonderful collaborator and thinking partner. He was born and raised here in the Bay Area by parents I would consider to be art royalty. Rio has deep connections to the local Bay Area art scene, and I really can't imagine anyone better to host this interview. So please, Rio and Doña, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Fran. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Rio Yañez, and I am absolutely thrilled to be here in conversation with Doña on behalf of the De Young Museum. I'm just so excited right now. Doña and I, we are two local kids from the Bay Area. We were chatting just a few minutes ago, trying to think, when did we meet? When did our paths first cross? And I think it has to do, I think the most Bay Area thing about us is that it has to do with our families, because our families collaborated together as creative families. My dad worked with your dad and your amazing family band. And your band performed at an art opening that I collaborated with my dad on. And that was like maybe 15 years ago. So it's so exciting to have you here, Doña, and to talk about, all of this amazing music and creativity that's coming from you.
Well, thank you so much. You're the person, my ideal person to talk with like this. I do interviews all the time, but it's not often that I get to do it with somebody that has known me since I was a child. And I'm also intimate with your work too. So it's awesome to be here tonight.
Well, one thing I kind of wanted to start off with, in 2020, you had a very fascinating 2020, and as a performer, you lead kind of a public life. So in interviews you gave last year, you talked a lot about the struggles that, yourself as an artist faced with like canceled gigs. I believe you were supposed to play like South by Southwest, and kind of, channeling your creativity and experimenting with music and finding ways to do things as a performer. I'm very curious just how your 2021 is going so far, and how it's been the last month has been for you as an artist.
That's, I'm so tired of talking about 2020. This is my first time getting asked about 2021. But it's been going well, honestly. Like, I think that a lot of us are experiencing this kind of like sigh of relief with the changeover of the administration, right? And it's not because I'm like, rah, oh my God, this is the best thing that could have happened. It's more so that I'm just like not in the fourth state of emergency crisis necessarily. That's like my immediate safety. So I do feel like that has given me a lot more just space to think about art, like 2021 was hard. All my gigs were canceled, all my tours were canceled, my EP release party, which was going to be really great, was canceled. And it just felt like a totally inappropriate time to be creating art. Like, it was a time to figure out how you're going to survive, to take whatever work you could get, to check on your family, to make sure people were like safe. But it didn't feel like a really great time to be making music. But 2021 has felt very different. I think that like that kind of political shift, even though it doesn't mean much yet, and it might not or, living under white supremacy, it's hard to really have that much faith for any type of concrete changes. But I do think that I just feel way more open to creating. I feel like, okay, even if it's one more year like this, 2 more years, I kind of am in my flow. I kind of know what I can do, what I am not willing to do at all. And it leaves me making music. So I'm working on the music, which is exciting and it feels good. It's like stretching an arm that I haven't used this whole year. But it feels good. Yeah. So 2021, better than 2020.
Hey, I'll take it. I'll take it. Speaking of making music, one thing that I really always wanted to ask you is when I've been lucky enough to see you perform live, I sometimes think about Dolly Parton, because Dolly Parton plays like 50 different instruments. And I've seen, when I saw her perform live, she busted out with all these instruments, which she played masterfully. And when I think about you and all the times I've been very fortunate enough to see you perform live, one thing I've always been really excited by and really just blown away by is that every live show I've seen you perform, you play a different instrument during that live show. Whether it's like a trumpet, an accordion, a guitar, you always have like a different instrument that you seem to have mastered in your process. I'm hoping to just, tell us a little bit about your process, and especially when you're kind of figuring out the instrumental parts of a song, like what is, how do you determine what goes into it?
That's an excellent question. And I really appreciate it, because I don't, that's like the most important part of my craft, is the arrangement of the song. And people don't think about it. People are like, oh yeah, whatever. Okay, there's a pop formula. And most people go with it and that's it. But for me, I grew up watching my dad arrange for a 20-piece, a 15 or 20-piece salsa band. And I grew up listening to that kind of music. And those arrangements are very different than what you're going to find on the radio or like a regular pop formula. And so, yeah, there's a lot that goes into it. I definitely like the salsa vibe, which is also originating from traditions, Afro-Cuban traditions and West African traditions of rumba, where you present the story. You have, okay, this is what's going on. This is what I want to talk about. And then you're able to transition into like more of a descarga, right? The party. Mm-hmm. It's like, now it's time to shake your ass. Now it's time to have fun. And so I definitely like to have my story, and then I like to have my chorus. And I was just talking to my kids, my students, about this last week, but it's the power of repetition, the power of call and response is what really invites the listener, invites the audience member to interact with the music, which is so, so important, especially now when we can't necessarily be out there dancing with people or in concert with people. To have that kind of music that invites you to participate by repeating the chorus or singing back the chorus, singing back something, that's really important to all music, but especially to my music and my arranging process. But in terms of the kind of supplementation or the way I arrange around acoustic instruments, that has to do with what I have on hand, right? Like right next to me, I have a trumpet, I have an accordion, I have my guitar. So it's like, okay, what do I have? Okay, if I figure it out on that instrument first, then it's likely that I'm gonna put that instrument in the song. But it also is a way for me to just include other collaborators, right? Like in the last song that I released, Chupa Rosa, was produced by Victor Murillo, who's an excellent master of son jarocho. And so he put all of those traditional guitars in there. And I was like so stoked to have another musician featured, but also to have those sonically unique sounds. Like it felt very special to me. So yeah, that's pretty much where I come from with that.
And in your process, how do you determine like what's going to be kind of like an instrumental arrangement and what's going to be more of like a studio production or like beats, you know, like.
Yeah, I hear that, because you saw me obviously playing acoustically with my family, all acoustic instruments. You know, we like to play live, no mics. And then with La Doña, I'm obviously relying a lot more on electronically produced beats. And I think that that's what makes my sound appealing, like across generations and across cultures, is that it has something for everybody. If you're not used to hip hop production, you're not used to beats, and you're like, oh yeah, those sounds don't feel good for me, then okay, you want a brass line? Okay, you want a brass ensemble? You got it. So I think that, yeah, it comes from wanting to not just wanting people to feel comfortable and familiar, but also that's just what I know. That's what I grew up very familiar with, is like straight up like hyphy production or like very traditional roots music, all on acoustic instruments. So yeah, I always try and integrate both of those components. If it's gonna be like Chupa, which it was mostly acoustic instruments, but I still wanted to add in some of that support, some of that electronic production support. Or if it's something that's way more hip hop based, like Algo Nuevo, I still had a very fat brass presence in that as well. So I try and hit it at all sides.
And in your work and in people writing about your work, I've seen the word Femmetón used. And can you tell me a little bit about that word and how, you know, it kind of applies to your vision as an artist?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like as a feminist, I really choose. I mean, no, I don't choose. It just happens that I'm centering, you know, my feminist experience in my music, and I think that the reason I use the word Femmetón is because I want it to be very clear that I am disrupting the very, you know, hetero patriarchal norm for reggaeton. And I'm not saying this to invisibilize all of the amazing female reggaetoneras and pioneers of this type of music. I'm not doing it to invisibilize the obvious influence and huge contribution of reggae and of dancehall on this genre either, but it's more so to present that, no, this is a feminist narrative. So if you want to listen to it, this is what you're getting yourself into. For those that already vibe with me and already feel the same way that I do, and for those that are not as familiar with that, it's you know, that's what it is.
And how is the reception to that, to your music and to your kind of your aesthetic, your politics in your music? Like, what has the reception been when you've taken it outside of the Bay Area?
It's been good. I think that like maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago, it would have been a little bit more difficult. There would have been more barriers. But I think that the radical direct action work that we do on the ground, even if the corporate world tries to deny it, it does tilt the scale, and it does situate our narratives more at the center. Even if we're still hella ignored, disrespected, whatever, by this corporate machine, at the same time, everyone's like, oh, well, I guess I could have a brown girl talking about fuck the police on here. Okay, I guess. Oh, all right. Oh, she's bi. Okay, I guess, yeah, we could talk about that. So it's kind of a weird position to be in, because I'm like, this is not performative. This is who I am. Like, anyone who knows me knows that this is how I am. This is always how I've been, very outspoken, very radical. But I think that it's kind of like more palatable right now. Like it's a little bit more appealing for wider support. So in this moment, it has been pretty chill. I haven't really had any pushback. And I think that a big part of that comes from my exercising of my agency through this project. You know, like, if I don't get big gigs from corporate sponsors, me vale. Like, that's okay. That's fine. I'm going to be creating, I'm going to be putting out my music, and I will be speaking to people who grew up like me and who feel similarly to me. So it's kind of like a win-win.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I think growing up in the Bay, you're very deeply rooted in the Bay. And I feel like right now we are definitely in a moment where, there is such an incredible like consciousness about intersectionality, about who we are, about not just, our artistry and our politics as brown folks, but, talking about queer identities, about gender, about sexuality. Um, and I feel like so much of your, the narrative of Cuando Se, of the changing face of San Francisco. Is there anything you're kind of looking towards in the future and in future projects and music that you'll create that is, I guess, like, what are you currently drawing from San Francisco right now as an artist? And in 2021, in this moment we're in, like, with so much behind us and so much happening around us, like, what are you really drawing from right now?
That's kind of a hard question to answer, but I'll just begin by saying that when I wrote Cuando Se, obviously it's about all the Frisco babies grow up with this impending sense of doom, right? You're either like, shit, the earthquake's gonna get me, or gentrification's gonna get me. And either way, like, I am trying to stay here. And that's true for myself. That's true for most of the people that I know that are from San Francisco. And so that's really what Cuando Se is about, and thinking about like the earthquake or other instances of climate catastrophe being the thing that kind of shakes loose all the bullshit and allows for us to, occupy our city once again. So it was very interesting and kind of painful and scary when the pandemic hit, and the pandemic was the thing to kind of shake everything up. That for me, I was like, oh my God. I was like, I felt guilty. I was like, shit, this is not what I meant to happen. I felt like scared. I was like, is this true? Are the tech companies leaving? Are we going to be able to be here? So it's still like a very interesting situation. Nobody really knows what's happening. It does feel more empty. It does feel less techy, but also I'm not on the street either. So in terms of right now, the music that I'm writing about right now is still addressing the ills of capitalism, still addressing identity work for myself. But definitely a lot of my music comes from my interactions with people. And as, a party girl, like, I grew up in the party, I'm sure you were dragged to every single party with your parents, with your dad. That's how we live. That's how we expect to live. And so without that component, it's like, it definitely is, it offers another kind of, I don't know, it makes it a little harder to write from the heart because I'm not fully living my life the way I have always.
Yeah, no, that's a real challenge. I mean, I think about, I with my amazing partner, Sada, we just talk about missing live music. And, we always, whenever I talk to someone, I was like, oh, what was the last concert you went to before everything hit, and I think there's definitely, as creative people, there's a challenge to draw inspiration from when our interaction with other artists and other creative types are so limited. In these recent times, like, what is your kind of, how are you taking care of yourself? Like, what is your self-care? What is your recharge in all of this right now?
I like, I'm like, am I in therapy? Yeah, no. No, these are good questions to ask yourself always. Everybody who's watching this, I hope you're asking yourself the same question. But no, I think that, like, I have a tendency to really overwork myself, and it used to be with the way that I kind of like came off of that was I would go out and be with my friends. And only when that was kind of taken away from me as a possibility did I realize, like, damn, if I don't go party, then maybe I will just spend my entire day working. And so it definitely takes a lot of strength and a lot of boundary drawing to leave work and to go be at home when you've been at home all day. But I definitely love to cook. I love to share food with my housemates, with my family. And yeah, we're just making it work. My family, like, we grew up very, very close, performing together, singing together. And it's very hard to, not be able to share a meal inside. And that hurt me a lot for about the first 6 months until I was like, Brett, why trip? Why trip off of something that you can't do anything about it? So now we have an awesome time outside at a distance, like bringing our own food, sharing certain things. But I think that that's really what's keeping me going, is the moments where I do get to spend time with my family. And also taking advantage of the internet to still do collaborative things, just not in person.
All right. Well, in terms of looking forward to the future, can you tell us a little bit about what's on the horizon for you creatively, what you're working on, what's coming up next, what we can be on the lookout for?
Yeah, so I have a lot of music in the works. I will probably be releasing my second EP with Human Resources, my distributor, in probably the first half of this year, but definitely by the end of March, you'll have a new single and a visualizer to accompany it. And as soon as it feels more safe and more possible, I would love to throw an outdoor concert with my longtime collaborator, Naomi Pazmanek, who we also grew up, her parents were my teachers, my parents were her teachers. And so we've been thinking about doing an outdoor screening of a film that she's working on, and also combining that with a show, with the socially distanced music show, because I want to play for you all. I miss playing for people. So that's
I'll be
what's
there.
coming. March should be a fun one. That's my birthday month too, so I always get super activated. But yeah, be on the lookout for new music and for a show eventually.
All right. And one last thing to kind of pay all this forward a little bit. Is there another artist out there that you can talk about, put us up on, that is inspiring or exciting to you, that you think the rest of us should know about?
Yeah, so I have 2 artists that I have been following their work very closely. And I'm actually starting through SF Jazz to work on a video project with them around, well, y'all will have to wait and see. But the first artist I want to mention is Kalina Lawrence, and she's an amazing Indigenous musician. She's from Washington, I believe, but she's been out here in the Bay and just does amazing collaborations, amazing vocalists, and there's so much intention behind all of her work. So look her up on YouTube, Kalina Lawrence. And the second person that I have been thinking about a lot and following closely and hoping to collaborate with is Bomb Snacks. She's an artist, or they are an artist out of Oakland. And I first, I started singing with her in another project, and I was like, wow, okay, you're lit. And since then, she started coming out more as a producer and working on her production and making music, making a lot of Afro-Latino music. She also studies son jarocho as well as reggaeton, and is just on a lot of cool stuff. So that's Bomb Snacks. You can find her on Instagram, and probably some stuff on YouTube as well. But those are both awesome female musicians that I am starstruck by them right now. I'm like so excited to see what they're gonna do.
All right, sounds good. Well, thank you so much, La Doña. I can't think of a better forum than to be talking with you, 2 San Francisco natives, 2 kids who grew up in the neighborhoods, talking with the DeYoung Museum, who's been, the DeYoung has been a tremendous support for a lot of local artists, especially during the past year. So many thanks to the DeYoung Museum for giving us this platform to talk together. But thank you so much for your time, and thank you to everyone out there. Any last words for us?
Just thank you also, Rio, and to the Young. It feels good to talk to another person. Nah, just kidding. I talk to people. It feels good to be in conversation, and also, just to feel recognized by the Young. And I hope to be in the museum soon and to be in person with you too, Rio. But thanks for the conversation. It was great.
All right, thank you so much, and thanks again to the Young. Have a beautiful and safe night, everyone, and take it away, Fran.
Thank you so much, Rio and Doña. We appreciate you so much. And thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. We will be back here, same place, same time, Wednesdays, 5 p.m. In our next Virtual Wednesday, we will welcome Benjamin Brayton, philosopher, designer, and computer scientist, all in support of the exhibition Uncanny Valley, Being Human in the Age of AI. For more information, please check out our website, www.famsf.org/virtual Wednesdays, and we hope to see you next week.